You're listening to Dairy Voice by Dairy Business News, a podcast exclusively for the dairy industry.
One of our sponsors of the Dairy Voice podcast is National DHIA. NDHIA ensures information accuracy and represents their members' interests. They are the direct voice for the dairy information industry. To find out more, go to dhia.org.
This episode is brought to you by DRMS, a trusted provider of dairy information and decision tools. As a nonprofit with deep ties to NC State and Iowa State universities, we've spent over 65 years serving the dairy industry, delivering research-backed software, standardized data, and exceptional customer support. Our dedicated team works alongside producers and consultants to ensure they get the training, tools, and insights they need. We turn complex herd data into clear, actionable insights that help producers and consultants make informed decisions every day through solutions built in collaboration with the dairy industry. Learn more at drms.org.
Hi, everyone. This is Kate Ziehm, and I'm with the Morning Ag Clips, and I'll be your host today on the Dairy Voice podcast by Dairy Business News. Morning Ag Clips and Dairy Business work hand in hand to serve the agricultural community. Today's dairy farmer wears many hats, reaching far beyond the milking parlor into every corner of the ag industry. Because both Morning Ag Clips and Dairy Business are dedicated to delivering timely, relevant news and information that supports farmers, we've teamed up to ensure our listeners and readers get the most complete picture possible. Today, we are joined by Udderways, an innovative startup company aimed at investing in the long-term viability of agriculture by smashing through roadblocks to revolutionize ag solutions for farmers, by farmers, with a commitment of exceptional talent, advanced skills, and groundbreaking innovation. Their small team is passionate about delivering real-world solutions to problems farmers are facing on a routine basis. The Vortex, Udderways' current product, brings about a better way to care for cows by using brushless technology to stimulate, clean, and dry cows' teats prior to milking. With this new tool, farms have the potential for quicker and faster milk letdown, labor savings, the elimination of cross-contamination, and the potential elimination of the need for towels. Udderways truly is a family business co-founded by a father and his two sons. With us today, we have each of those three co-founders, Jody Neal, also in the role of CEO, eldest son Jaden, the research and development engineer, and Jody's youngest son Zach, who leads marketing and strategy. We are also joined by Will Gregoire, the team's mechanical engineer, and Molly Toussaint, who takes on the role of the growth and outreach coordinator. The team is rounded out by part-time sales representative Andy Cole, and unfortunately, Andy could not join us today. I'd like to say welcome, guys. It's great to see you. I just want to say, first of all, this is a timely podcast today, just because it's the holiday season and it's all about family and tradition. But also, I want to just say my interest in this is back about a year ago, I received a press release into the Morning Ag Clips, and it was for the Grow New York Food and Ag Summit. And the winner, I noticed the name was Jody Neal. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know that guy. Jody and I went to college together back a lot of years ago. Back at Cornell, we went through the Cornell Dairy Fellows program, spent many nights with the gang down at Dunbar's and everywhere. So I was really excited to get reacquainted with Jody and now his family. And here we are today. Let's jump in so that we can give our listeners some background. Jody, tell me a little bit about the history of the dairy farm, the family, and what the farm looks like today compared to when you came back
So I represent the third generation on the dairy farm, along with my brother James, and I have a younger brother Jeremy that works with us too. But to start off, my grandfather purchased this farm back in 1956 with 16 cows, and my dad came back into the farm in 1964, and then over time they grew to about 120 cows in the late 80s, and I went off to college in 92, never planning on milking another cow in my life.
Yep.
Well, to see things, and was going to be a veterinarian, rode around with some vets and decided that wasn't really what I wanted to do. Realized the great opportunity I had here at home, and so after graduating, I came back in 96. We had 200 cows within a few months, and then have grown to about 600 cows to our current state, in which we also have. I have four children. Zach and Jay are represented here, and I have two daughters also, Casey and Addie, and my wife Andrea. Currently, I have some, there's another generation, potential generation on the farm, and I have some nephews that work with us too. We've always kind of had an innovative nature, and even my brother and myself. I mean, we've done some creations over the years. Some have worked, some haven't. I was thinking about it earlier, and I don't know how many times I heard my dad say, "Work smarter, not harder." Been kind of one of the phrases that comes to mind.
With over 85 projects, California Bioenergy is without a doubt one of the leading developers of anaerobic digesters for dairy farms in the United States. Since 2006, CalBio has been forming successful partnerships with dairy farmers to create digesters that are built to last. Our CalBio team has the expertise to help lead you through the entire development process. From project design and engineering to credit generation and the day-to-day operations. With subsidiaries in the Northwest, Midwest, and Southwest, CalBio is ready to partner with dairy farmers across the country. Learn more at calbioenergy.com.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Work smarter, not harder. Although, as a dairy farmer, we can't help but work hard all the time. But we get to do it with our family, and that's what's so great about this situation here today is you've got the kids here with you. So tell me a little bit about, you've changed from just milking cows to now you have this company that is technological and innovative and trying to bring efficiency to the dairy farm. Tell us a little bit about that journey and how it all came to be and happened and when you realized that you might be on to something.
Well, we've always loved to tinker, and usually it was just on projects around the farm. And back when I think Zach was 10 and Jay was 12, I had a company come to me and wanted to use a different type of sanitizer around the farm, and we were trying to find a way to use it as a pre-dip. And Zach had just invested in a 3D printer because he thought it'd be a money maker. Jay figured out how to run it, and I said, "Hey guys, let's make this something to apply this," because we were trying to find a way to get the solution. And so it's kind of cool. We kept making little like attachments for garden hose nozzles, and we'd come up the original sketches. I got that napkin sketch. We kept testing things, and they could go home at night and they could print a new one. The next day we could check it, we could make changes, never with the intention of really coming up with something to market, just something we were using here and kind of a fun little project. That went on for 3-4 years, and we had our hiccups with different things with the chemical, but then kind of the aha moment was we were working together trying to find a way to control the water flow, trying to keep the water from splashing back out the top of the tool. And we tried this vortex pattern. And all of a sudden, when you put a cow's teat in it, it oscillated the cow's teat. What it did is we realized very quickly that it helped the cows let their milk down. We kind of broke that barrier of thinking you had to physically touch the cow to stimulate her to let her milk down. We were able to do it with air pressure and water.
Interesting.
And that is kind of was the turning point. We applied for a patent on that application process, and we grew from there with many different models and struggles and successes, and then tried to realize we had something we wanted to bring to market.
So just to ask Jody, so you guys started using this on your farm and you were noticing a difference? You were getting more milk out of the cows, you were getting a quicker letdown?
And so we could see that there was our bimodals dropped within a few days on the milking equipment we had at the time. You could see the improvement. And so like that's when we said this is a game changer in the industry. So how do we develop it? And we kept working with it. We talk about Cornell, we talk about the groups. Had another member of one of my pro dairy discussion groups that kept up on this project, and he became our first farm just a couple years into it to help us work on that. And he's been with us for 5.5, 6 years now.
And
Yes.
he uses it every day on his farm.
Well, that was in 2018 when we ended up getting the patent, and that was once we found that oscillation. That's when we really had the realization that okay, this is something that's really benefited our farm, and we kind of switched our mindset there and switched to okay, now we can help other people with this, and that's when we really pushed forward and Udderways was born.
So you definitely knew you were onto something if you took the time and energy to go get that patent. I'm sure there were lots of tweaks along the way and working with other farms to have them give it a shot and try it.
The whole process, there was a lot of little blessings. Even our patent agent, I mean, he treated us great. Here comes a father and two sons, and now they're like 12 and 14. And
Yep.
we're meeting with patent agents and trying to figure out how to do this. They walk through the process, and it was educational all the way through. Just different people that came in and different companies that wanted to try it or wanted to work with us to help.
Well, they must have been blown away just by seeing a father and two sons being so young. I mean, I'm sure it's not uncommon at all to see a dad coming in with sons that are the age of having their own families. But you guys being so young, were you always in the scientific technology classes at school and figuring things out?
We homeschooled our children, and they went to both Jay and Zach went and took some college classes at GCC their
Okay.
junior and senior year. But it's kind of the way everything fit together. Like, I could have a vision, but I couldn't make it happen without somebody that could run the equipment in 3D print. And, Zach can strategize. He's always been kind of the business side of it and the thinker, the dreamer on where it could go a little bit too. So that's just being able to take and create a team to pull things together.
Yeah, and I think that that brings up an important discussion is that it takes a team. And isn't that what family is about? And working on a farm is that growing up in a dairy business and in a farm situation, we take for granted all the work that we do together and learning how to get along and learning how to communicate. And I remember a few years ago, of course, I have three sons and I've watched them interact with each other, but how unique it is to do a project that is so involved, gets down to the heart of making money every day and making things work smoothly. It's really fascinating to me. So tell me a little bit about what everybody's role is who is sitting at the table today, because you've put together a team and it sounds like you complement each other really well. I'll let whoever wants to start just chime in and tell us a little bit about what you do for Udderways and how you came into the picture.
So as my dad was saying, I'm more on like the business end. That was always an interesting balance, especially when we were starting out, because there really was no quote unquote business when we started out. It was more just product development. So
Okay.
I saw my dad and brother doing a lot of the work, but didn't feel like I was contributing quite as much until I would say about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. That's when my role definitely developed. And that's when I got a lot more involved because it appealed more to my interests. that makes sense.
Funny story about Zach, we were all sitting around when we first came up with the Vortex pattern, and we had basically a bunch of engineer minds in the room. And Zach's there with us. I think he felt like he was dragged along a little bit. We're trying to figure out how to add an air dry system so we can use it for drying cows' teats. And he looks at us and he goes, "Guys, why don't you just shut the water off and use the same holes?" Oh yeah, yeah. So, and then I'll lead into Jay. Jay is, we can bring the ideas out and he can make the equipment work and engineer it and make it happen.
So yeah, my made up title for Udderways is R&D. When I was 13 or whatever, I designed our original prototypes and migrated that into the Vortex handle later. More recently, I've gotten into redoing some of our control system. There's some overlap with Will as well. We've really changed the handle over time. It's nothing near where it was when we started, and there's been probably 5 or 6 major evolutions so far. So I'm on to the next one of those too. It's just future products and future hardware and software ideas.
Jay is not afraid to teach himself something and go out and learn if we don't know, and if he doesn't know it. And I'll just make note that our first model was on a program called Tinkercad. That's kind of a fun little note, and that was his first CAD experience.
So
Okay.
after we got the 3D printer, I couldn't figure out how to run it at all. Technology was not my thing. I just got frustrated and gave up on that side of it pretty quickly. And that's when Jay kind of took over, and he was always coming up with new projects, pretty much on a daily basis. And then it'd be something like really cool that would just absolutely blow my mind. Like every week there was something new. He was always just coming up with these projects, usually for himself. And I just always saw the potential in it. It was always my piece, as I would see that this could go somewhere. It was always really impressive to see what he would come up with. This is definitely not the first thing. I guess we'll put it that way.
Sounds like you're the guy that takes the idea and runs with it, while Jay is the one that creates it. And I think it's such a great thing that you guys can make all these tweaks and changes and have immediately the product that you have in your mind as the next step, and you can try it out and then you can go back to the drawing board. I mean, a lot of people who are in your position are relying on another company to make the part or the prototype, and you've got it all right here.
And after the Grow New York Innovation Challenge, that's what allowed us to start building the team. And I'll introduce Will next. So
I worked for years on the milking on the dairy farm on weekends. Always been around agriculture. My grandfather was a dairy farmer. I did 4-H for years, so just always been part of my life. And then went to college at RIT, got a degree in mechanical engineering, and then was still working on the farm, but I had a full-time engineering job during the week. Then I ended up here when they asked if I wanted to help them. So day to day, I do a little bit of everything. Right now, I put the systems together and put the tools together. I also work a decent amount on like quality assurance and working to improve the control system as far as like material compatibility and stuff like that. Yeah, refining the tool and finding ways to fix things that farmers find ways to break. So
they do a lot of that.
We had a meeting when it was just Dad, Jaden, and myself. We're like, okay, we're at the point now where we have to hire somebody, and we need to expand our team. And we just made a list of what we were looking for. We're like, we just need like a Will. We need somebody like Will. If it was Dad or myself, we're like, you know what? We should just call him. Let's see what happens. And a few weeks later, we had our Will.
You had Will. That's great. All right, Molly, last but not least, tell us what your role is and how you came to be here.
I was hired without a title, but I love that. So I started with the USDA as soon as I graduated college. I come from a dairy farm, so it's obviously my passion. And I spent quite a few years with the USDA. Didn't really think that my life would take the turn that it has, but I am very fortunate that it did. I approached Jody earlier on in the spring of 25 as the Vortex was kind of gaining some popularity and you started seeing more about it in the media. And we weren't quite ready for somebody else. And I wasn't quite ready to leave the USDA yet. So we took some time. I ended up joining the team in the summer and we went full steam ahead from there. So I am the growth and outreach coordinator. That's my official title. So I try to do as much growth and outreaching as we can. But we haven't really had to do too much of that on the customer side of things, honestly. The tool speaks for itself, and the farmers have been approaching us as opposed to us trying to be out there and getting the product in their hands. So as far as day to day, because I'm not necessarily out there trying to represent our product, I do a lot of customer relations. So finding where the problems are, like Will is saying, they manage to break things. So trying to help come up with those solutions, give them some ideas for some different routines that they can tweak in their parlor, monitoring data, trying to keep the office in a organized state to an extent, and helping Zach out a little bit on the business side of things.
And I can attest we're seeing more from Udderways with press releases and what's going on, which is great. You're doing great, Molly. Can you guys walk me through? I'm a dairy farmer and I'm hearing this podcast and I'm wondering, gosh, I'm interested. What can I expect? I'm going to call you. Do you manufacture everything there at the farm? How does it work?
To date, yes, we're assembling stuff here and we're bringing in, it's a very simple system. And to prove things out and get the durability where we need it, we've targeted some test farms and work with a dealer when the farms are far enough away so that the dealer can learn how the system works. We're in the process of gearing up right now. We can do a larger volume or do that. Udderways is probably going to be more of a support team for the existing dealer network. Doesn't make sense for us to duplicate a lot of what's out there. Piecing together the last steps for, training materials, installation instructions, and still working on our finalizing and ruggedizing our design a little bit more because we find new ways every day to.
If I remember correctly, Jody, that mind is always going. So it sounds like your kids, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. They're constantly tweaking and thinking of better ways to do things.
Again, that's the fun part about this team. It's just rewarding that everybody plays a different role and you bring something back and it just happens.
So talk to me a little bit about, because I know that in our audience, there are dairy farmers who have different parts of the business that aren't necessarily all about making milk, but maybe if it's a farm store or it's a custom harvest operation. Talk a little bit about how you're organized within the business, and is Udderways a separate entity? How do you all interact with the other side of the business, which would be the dairy farm? And what's your mode of communication and keeping everybody on track and on the same page about where the businesses are going?
Well, we'll start off by saying that the farm and Udderways are separate entities, but they definitely have a symbiotic relationship. And I'll let my dad kind of talk to that a little bit more.
It is set up separate, but yet it's nice to be able to make something. And because we're using the tool here, the farm is the natural test place. So that's the first step to it. And, there's overlap with Will does, some stuff on the cow end on weekends still and gets pulled in during the week when questions are asked or something needs to be fixed too. So as far as my role, I was the main herd type person or decision maker on the farm. I should say decision maker is the best term. So it's helping me to delegate. This takes more time than I anticipated. And it's also helping the next generation on the farm, be able to step up and take on more roles. So it's kind of a natural progression.
I liked that word symbiotic, though. because you're absolutely right, is the dairy farm is the launch pad. And everything kind of shoots off of that and gets to a point where they've stabilized. And in this case, Udderways has stabilized, but yet both entities utilize the other to support. And that is something that I'm sure many dairy farms have gone through the trials and tribulations of making that transition happen. And as you all know, probably sitting at the table, and I know coming from a family that has made similar moves in terms of branching off from just the dairy farm, it goes through growing pains. But if everybody's open to going in the same direction and having the same goals in mind, the growing pains work themselves out. So it's always interesting to hear how people manage that.
Udderways real good credibility too, because people can come to the farm, they can see the tool in action, they can see it successful here. And I think it's helped us in some of those growing pains where we had a couple cases where it didn't work. Why didn't it work? But why does it work here? And that's one of the cool parts about working with the dairy industry too, is there is a lot of forward thinkers and innovators in the industry.
Oh, yeah.
We're coming from inside the industry with a product that we initially, intended just to use on this farm, and we solved the problem, and we just want to help other farmers. So I think that's what really gives credibility to, is that, again, we're coming at this from the inside. We're not outside the dairy industry trying to push a product in. We know it comes from a need that's already there, and I think that's helped us.
I want to touch briefly on the grant. Tell us a little bit about how you have utilized the grant that you applied for, as well as the Grow New York, the award that you received there. Tell our audience about that.
So there's a couple different competitions that the team has participated in, as well as an actual grant that we recently applied for. So I'll touch a little bit on the grant that we just did, and then I'll let the team kind of chat about the other competitions. So we did recently apply for the USDA A-Free grant, which is administered through the National Institute of Food and Agriculture Division in October of this year. And of course, with the government having been shut down, we haven't heard anything yet on that. But if we do end up receiving funding from that, we're going to use that as a research opportunity for the business. So we want to utilize our tool to see what we can do for small to medium-sized dairy farms that tend to be left out of the conversation when it comes to automation in the dairy industry. It's pretty easy for large-scale dairies to kind of acclimate to this automation, but how do we get those items in the hands of the small and medium-sized dairies and make it efficient for them?
I'll kind of speak to the pitch competition piece. Let's see, it all started in 2023 when we applied for the Farm Bureau Ag Innovation Challenge. We were very, very early stage at that point. Somebody had suggested we apply for it, and we're like, you know what, it's not going to hurt anything. Let's go for it and see what happens. And then we received an email that we were one of the 10 finalists. So we were very surprised at that point and went to Salt Lake City. We prepared a 7.5-minute pitch that I ended up delivering. And what they did was they took the top 4 teams, and then they had to go on and do another pitch the next day. So we had put a lot of work into the 7.5-minute pitch and didn't put a whole lot of thought into the 3-minute pitch because, again, we're very early stage. We'll just see what happens. And then the next morning we got an email, congratulations, you guys are in the top 4. Brother are like, yes, let's go. And I'm saying, oh shoot, I gotta make another presentation. So we ended up getting that done. They had a very full schedule that day. So I had about 45 minutes to trim down the presentation and come up with a new version. And we ended up taking second place in that. That got us $20,000 because we were very efficient. We had like the printers and everything on site, and we're able to test everything, new models on a daily basis and all that. We were able to like completely change our design. And we went from this thing that we were manufacturing in our garage to gluing together to what at the time we thought was a commercial ready prototype. There's still a little bit of room to go there, but what we did in that year with that $20,000 was very impressive. Lots of work on Jaden's end with that. That was phenomenal. From the Ag Innovation Challenge, somebody suggested, hey, you gotta apply for Grow New York, which was kind of like the next level. Instead of $20,000, you went up to $1 million. We're like, you know what, let's do it. Same thing, we applied. We're like, we're very early stage. Let's just kind of see what happens here. And then again, we got an email. Congratulations, you guys are in the top 20 finalists. Competed there. We worked with Dave Eilers. He was our business mentor for months leading up to the competition, and he helped us out a lot. We learned so much from that process. We ended up taking home a $500,000 investment for 2% of Udderways, which was very exciting. And with that money, that's kind of what's allowed us to scale and expand our team. That's why we have Will and Molly and Andy just kind of pushing forward from here.
And the networking that came out of that too, just finding out what kind of manufacturing facilities were right in our backyard and where people could help us, and people reached out to us from there. And so that was another step of credibility. Some of that publicity really pushed us to get market ready quicker.
Yeah, because people in the industry don't necessarily know what's going on next door. And to think that you are developing this technology that could be so beneficial, just the attention that those awards brought to you, I'm sure brought more people rising to the surface, asking questions, wondering how can we try this? Tell us more. What's the technology here? Very interesting. And honestly, that's how I was made aware. As I said, it was the press releases that people don't think matter necessarily, because you send them out and they seem to go into a hole and you never know what happens to them. But I'll tell you, they do get read, and they get dispersed to the community that you want to hit, and it can really be like a domino effect. And it sounds like that's exactly what has happened here. What is something I want to kind of go around the table, because there's so much here. There's so many lessons and moving forward, what your thoughts are. But if everybody can just tell me a little bit, if they could say one thing in parting about this journey so far and what you've learned that you would love our audience to hear.
For me, it's been great to be an engineer for a company who also has a customer that's parlor is a 1-minute walk from our office building. It's awesome to just have that flexibility to be able to explore ideas and apply what I'm learning immediately, have things fail quickly. It's been nice to work with a small team that is able to change course with all sorts of skill sets that mesh together so nicely as we collaborate on these different ideas.
Thank you, Jay.
This whole thing taught me that innovation and entrepreneurship, they don't necessarily have to be complicated. And when you're living something every day, you kind of see those problems firsthand and you start trying to fix them. And that's really how the whole thing started for us. It was just solving a problem that we faced every day. And it's been really rewarding to work here with family and friends.
Will?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say I've always been passionate about agriculture, just because of growing up around my grandfather and helping him on his farm, and then just 4-H and stuff. And I've always wanted an opportunity to use my professional training and skills as an engineer and a very technical mechanical person. I've always wanted to use those in the field of agriculture. So this being a company that's rooted in farming and has a passion for innovation and finding new ways to do things, it's just been a perfect place to combine those passions and my skills.
Thank you.
You could have asked me a year ago, and this definitely wouldn't have been a place that I saw myself at. I spent a decade with USDA. I still consider myself young. I'm not old by any means now. But at USDA, I was connected to the ag industry, but I still felt distant from it as compared to having grown up on my family's farm. The 5 months that I've spent here with Udderways has enabled me to be a more direct connection to not only the ag industry, but specifically the dairy industry that I'm very passionate about. And I know that our whole entire team feels that way, that they're really passionate about the dairy industry, but also the work that we're doing and trying to support the industry in general. I think it's great that the Neals have brought something so innovative and unique to the dairy industry and continue to try to spread it across the country and hopefully someday across the globe.
Awesome.
So for me, I mean, this started out as a fun project with my two sons and just rewarding. And now all of a sudden to see that what it's turning into and take an idea that has so much excitement from other farms and other parts of the industry, and then to top it off and just to build kind of such a cool team and just see where everybody's individual roles are playing a part right now. Been one of the funnest ventures of my life, and we look forward to doing a lot more with this in our next projects and seeing, where we latch on to grow this to the next level, what kind of partnerships that takes.
Yeah, sky's the limit, right? I just want to thank you all for being here today with us. And just to reiterate how special it is, not only that you're a dairy farm, because dairy farms are near and dear to my heart as well, but just the fact that you can wake up every day and you can work with each other, enjoy each other's company through the good times and the tough times. And during this season, the holiday season, I think it's extra special that we can bring the family dynamic to the surface and for all of us to be reminded how lucky and special and blessed we are every day to work with each other in this industry that is just awesome in my mind. And it's been a real pleasure to get reconnected with you, Jody, after all these years, but to just see a family that is working together, but more importantly, growing together because you're working through a project and wanting to see it be the best that it can be to make a better dairy industry, which is what we're all about. Somewhere we will have the information so that anybody listening today who's interested in Udderways and the technology that the Neal family is bringing to the dairy industry can get in touch with all of you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe to one of America's most trusted ag news sources, the Morning Ag Clips. We will provide you with your quick 1-2 on local and national agricultural news every day. And it's free. Everything from dairy and the latest technologies to farm business management, policy, and lifestyle. We got you covered. Go to www.morningagclips.com and subscribe today. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time on the Dairy Voice podcast.